Welcome to the Anime Audiophile Podcast. Please like and subscribe for more. Thank you. Sasuke Retsuden, the Uchiha Descendants, and the Heavenly Stardust. Chapter 2. The next day, the guards punished Sasuke for the first time. The reason they gave was that he had looked away during roll call. The batons they swung with glee landed on Sasuke's shoulders, collarbone, and back in turn. Naturally, for Sasuke, being hit by average people was of no real consequence. But even so, it hurt, and it did make him angry. He reflexively clicked his tongue in annoyance, which was taken as insubordination, and he got a few extra slaps for that. What's with them? Up until yesterday, they were all on eggshells around you, and now they're breaking out the truncheons. Gigi snarled as they worked, not realizing that a guard was behind him, and he too took a baton to the stomach. And then Sasuke got 3 times as many blows because he hadn't warned Gigi not to chat during work. The sentries were clearly under orders from the director to target Sasuke. But since he hadn't been tied down or locked away in solitary, this new targeting didn't mean his identity as a ninja of Konoha had been found out. If it had, he wouldn't have been allowed to mix with the other prisoners and dig at the ground with his hoe. Sansa likely thought Sasuke had some shinobi knowledge and was thrown in with the general population of prisoners. And that he toyed with his precious minnow. Sasuke was clearly a little too full of himself, he thought, and so Sansa would make him suffer. Sasuke met the ends of batons from 8 different guards that day. He wasn't working fast enough. He didn't answer when called. His eyes were defiant. He was beaten again and again, and while none of the beatings did him any real damage, the more beatings he got, the angrier he became. At the end of the day, just as he was about to sleep, the patrol beat him, citing that his hair was too long. He seriously thought about paying them back double. If he hadn't infiltrated this place for Naruto's sake, he would have broken a rib or 2. Sasuke, you're really catching it today, huh? Those guards sure have a score to settle with you all of a sudden. Penzilla and Gano both voiced their sympathy for Sasuke. The guards often bully prisoners as a way of killing time. But the ones they targeted had always been weak and timid, the type who wouldn't fight back when they were made the butt of jokes. Sasuke wasn't one of those prisoners. It's no big deal, Sasuke said as if he couldn't care less, but his tone conveyed his obvious annoyance. They're seriously riled up, Gigi retorted. You do something to make the director mad? Maybe he just hates the look of him? Penzilla said. He looks like he hate anyone more handsome than him. Yeah. He's definitely way too proud. While they chatted brightly, the room abruptly went dark. Lights out. Every night at that time, the lights were turned off with no warning whatsoever and not turned on again until morning, no matter what happened. Even when the man 3 cells down had a heart attack, they didn't turn the lights on. Gigi and the others groped around to find their futons and climbed into them. After a few minutes, Sasuke heard the breathing around him drop into a regular rhythm. Not only were they exhausted from the day's work, but their bodies had grown accustomed to the rhythm of the hours here. After checking that they were all asleep, he pulled on the bars of the door and left the cell. As Sasuke started out into the halls of the residence, he wrapped a thin piece of fabric around his wrist. The red strip was proof that he had permission to be out of his cell. They were given out by guards when there was work to be done outside of normal hours or when a prisoner had to go to the infirmary outside of free time. As long as he was wearing it, he wouldn't be deemed to be in violation of the rules and attacked by minnow. He had nicked it from the pocket of a guard who had left it wide open as he raised his baton to strike Sasuke earlier that day. He killed his aura as he walked down the chilly corridor and heard someone weeping. The sound was coming from a steel cabinet that held cleaning supplies and was up against the wall. He could guess what was going on, but he couldn't exactly walk on past and ignore it. When he opened the door, he found a skinny man with curly hair stuffed inside, hands and feet bound with hemp rope. Yeep. When the man saw Sasuke, his whole body stiffened. The wrists bound in front of his chest were wet with saliva, and there were clear bite marks on them. If he cried out, Minnow would find him that much faster, so he was biting his own hands to hold back his screams. "What are you doing here?" Sasuke demanded. The man stammered. "I was coming back from the John when one of the old hands got me. Locked me up in here. Bullying then." Sasuke pulled the rope from the man's wrists and ankles. When temperamental men were locked up in an environment like this for days on end, they looked for others to take their stress out on, and the majority of those targeted were weaker guys. Guys who had no friends to protect them. Or sickly guys with one foot in the grave anyway. "Where's your pass?" Sasuke asked. "Gone." The man shook his head. "They took it." Sasuke clicked his tongue, unwound the red fabric from his arm, and pushed it on the trembling man. If he stepped into the hallway with no pass, he'd be found by Minnow and eaten sooner or later. With several thanks, the man ran out into the corridor, and Sasuke watched him go with genuine sympathy. For Sasuke, this was nothing more than a place he was infiltrating temporarily. But for that man, it was a graveyard. At the current pace of work, Sasuke had no idea when the telescope would be finished, but the possibility that the man would die before it was completed was extremely high. He wasn't good with weak people. He never knew what he should. Tack. He heard the sound of hard claws hitting the floor behind him. Wind touched the nape of his neck. The sharp talons slashed through Sasuke's back, ripping him in two, or so it appeared. But then Minnow noticed Sasuke plastered to the ceiling and snorted. Boom! The end of Minnow's tail smashed into the ceiling. Sasuke allowed himself to drop to the floor amid the falling fragments of wood and examined Minnow's belly from very close up. There was indeed nothing along the lines of an injury there. But he was sure he'd sliced open the beast's stomach the previous night. "That's some healing ability," he remarked. "Or did you switch out with a different lizard?" Expressionless, Minnow charged at Sasuke. A flash of claws ripped through empty air, and Minnow fell forward with the force of the follow-through. Sasuke was already dancing forward beneath him. He kicked at the maw covered with hard scales and followed up with 2 side kicks to the belly. Just as he delivered the last of these blows, the long, light tail came flying at him from one side. He caught the tip with his right hand and yanked hard, and Minnow lost his balance and flipped over onto his stomach. Sasuke immediately grabbed his neck and tried to use his Sharingan once more, since he had nothing to lose doing so and maybe something to gain. But the result was the same. Minnow did not succumb to the Genjutsu. Minnow narrowed his eyes sharply, perhaps feeling humiliated at being caught under Sasuke like this. He twisted around and thrust his head forward in an attempt to rip off Sasuke's. Sasuke leaped back, and the claw on Minnow's foot grazed his cheek. His skin split, and the smallest scratch of blood emerged. He braced himself for yet another attack and unsheathed his hidden dagger. But contrary to his expectations, Minnow leaped back, away from Sasuke. What's he doing? Sasuke didn't let his guard down as he wondered how the lizard would attack him from that distance, but then he was assaulted by a wave of dizziness. He staggered back, and for one brief moment, his focus shifted away from Minnow. When he came back to himself with a gasp, Minnow was baring his fangs and closing in on him. For claws shot out at him and tickled the ends of his hair when Sasuke jumped to the left and dodged the attack somehow. When his feet hit the ground again, he was overcome with another wave of dizziness. Reeling, he braced himself and desperately tried to bring his shaking vision into focus. He threw out a hand against the wall and dropped to his knees as Minnow came at him once again. His heart pounded hard against his ribs, and all the strength drained out of his legs. Ah! The inside of his chest was so hot. Minnow's sharp claws glittered in his washed-out field of view. With his free hand, Sasuke pulled out his sword and whipped it through the air. The supporting beam and floor were cut away, and the chunk of wood dropped down to the floor below. Minnow immediately gave chase, leaping into the hole after Sasuke. He swiveled his head, seeking out Sasuke. But Sasuke's form and scent were already gone. Ah! Ah! Panting, Sasuke crept forward along the dark corridor, pressed up against the wall. He managed to shake Minnow off, but his body was growing number by the second. What flashed through his mind was the moment Minnow's claws grazed his cheek. He was certain that was when the poison entered his system, but he'd never heard of a lizard with poisonous claws. Sansel had likely painted the poison on them. NGH. He began to shiver uncontrollably. A fierce chill ran up his spine, and his mind went blank. His skin was hot to the touch, like it was on fire. And yet the core of his body was so cold, he felt like his insides would freeze, and he couldn't stop shivering. He worked some chakra in the palm of his hand to create some water with water style and brought it to his mouth. But he'd barely gotten his hand to his lips when the tips of his fingers began to shake, and he could no longer even knead chakra properly. The water spilled onto his collar and dripped down toward his waist. Ah! Damn it! His vision twisted. His ears were filled with impossibly loud auditory hallucinations as though fireworks were going off inside his head. The situation was dire. When it came to common poisons, his resistance was such that he could take several times the lethal dose and it would still have no effect. That this poison affected him so strongly and quickly meant that it was either extremely powerful or something unknown and particular to this region. Ah! Ah! His breathing grew shallow and labored as if his throat were blocked, and he dragged his rebellious body forward, holding onto the wall for support. His heart was making an awful sound and interfering with his breathing. It was like he was hyperventilating and having a heart attack at the same time. He lapped up the remaining drops of water-style water in his palm, but this didn't do anything to ease his pain. He leaned against the wall and wondered if he should just wait for the symptoms to subside. Tack. Sasuke heard the footstep echoing in the distance through the piercing pounding in his head and froze. This was bad. Someone was coming. If he ran into an enemy in this state, it would be the end for him. The footsteps gradually grew closer. Sasuke brought up the three-tone mole in his eyes and desperately tried to focus his blurred vision. He wasn't sure he could make his body move the way he wanted it to anymore. Whoever was on their way down this hall, he had no choice but to rely on Jinjutsu to get through. He held his breath and waited as the footfalls grew louder. Tack, tack, tack. The sound of feet hitting the stone of the hall floor disappeared, and a moment later, he felt an aura immediately behind him. His mind reacted, but his body didn't follow. A hand stretched out from behind to cover his eyes with the Sharingan activated. A soft hand. Sasuke gasped. He knew the fingers covering his face. No, don't be absurd. What would she be doing here? Without the strength left to even turn around, Sasuke fell backwards, and a familiar warmth caught him. I got you, Sasuke. It was Sakura's voice. Laying on bed in the infirmary, Sasuke took quick, shallow breaths. Phew, phew. The pulse that shook his eardrums and the disturbing sensation of his inner ear canal being turned inside out had more or less gone away. When he tentatively tried to move his arms and legs, he was pleased to find that he could control them again, more or less. His wife opened the curtain surrounding the bed on all sides and poked her face in. How are you feeling? Much better. Sasuke sat up slowly and got out of the bed. He still felt a little dizzy, but he'd be back to his old self again before too long. He was more concerned with why Sakura was here. Judging from your symptoms, I'd say it was likely a type of poison with action potential effects. It obstructs the chakra network, causes depolarization, and overexcites the central nervous system. The fact that you have no resistance to it means that the substance is particular to this region. Sakura rolled up his sleeve. After swabbing the inside of his elbow with an alcohol-soaked cotton ball, she said, "This will pinch a little," as if talking to a child, and pushed a needle into his vein. Sakura. As he watched his own blood fill the tube attached to the needle, Sasuke asked slowly, "Why are you here?" "What about Sarada?" "She's doing a homestay with Master Iruka," she replied. "I came to tell you about a change in the mission." "A change in the mission?" At present, Naruto and Nine Tails were suffering from some unknown disease. According to the tailed beast, the Sage of Six Paths had also been ill with the same symptoms. And during his stay in the land of Ridaku, he had recovered from that illness. The details of how the Sage of Six Paths had been cured were a mystery. Therefore, it had been decided that Kakashi would infiltrate the capital of the land of Ridaku to look for clues. But it took many long days to reach even the outer edges of the land of Ridaku. With no contact from Kakashi, Naruto's condition grew worse and worse. The majority of the seemingly relevant literature that existed in the Land of Fire was written in an ancient language, and even with a team of specialized scholars, it would be slow going to decipher them. It appeared that the Sage of Six Paths had stayed for a lengthy period at an astronomical research institute together with someone called Jean-Marc Tatar, but the scholars hadn't been able to unearth any more than that. While they dawdled, Naruto might end up too far gone to help. Frustrated by the slow progress, Sasuke had ignored the voices trying to stop him and set out for the Tatar Observatory on his own in search of clues related to the Sage of Six Paths' illness. And after he had left the Land of Fire, Sakura came chasing after him. "While I was on my way, Shikamaru's hawk brought me this," Sakura said, holding out a folded piece of paper covered with Shikamaru's familiar handwriting. "He said there's something about the Sage of Six Paths' illness in this book that Master Kakashi found in the capital. This is a copy of that section." Wasting away from a curious illness, the Sage of Six Paths had caused to attend the land of Ridaku and thus did meet the astronomer Tatar on his path. Ministered to by this Tatar, his illness nonetheless troubled him yet. One evening, Tatar espied a meteor approaching the land. The Sage of Six Paths caught this fallen meteorite in hand and split it in twain in a singular motion. A bright light spilled forth from the half-meteorite to bathe the Sage of Six Paths instantly. The sage was freed of his illness of many years. The meteor which fell from the heavens presented him with blessed strength, allowing his chakra to expand without limit. Tatar named the substance in the meteor that was the source of his power ultraparticles. To stop those who would struggle for this grand power he held, he had half of these ultraparticles in the sky that fell to the earth, and the other half in the star that never strays. The ultraparticles sleep in this world well protected by a path lined with stars. Should others be consumed with the illness of the Sage of Six Paths, they are destined to desire the power of the ultraparticles. And thus this distant power will be made to come to this distant land. Any who would seek out this state must tarry in the land of Ridaku reveling with the map of the heavens. Should others be consumed with the illness of the Sage of Six Paths, Sasuke said, rereading the last 3 lines. These ultraparticles were the key to curing Naruto's illness. According to this text, the Sage of Six Paths split them into 2 and hid one group in the sky that fell to the earth and the other in the star that never strays. This is just a hypothesis, but Shikamaru and I both think that Naruto's illness is probably some kind of malfunction in his chakra channels that happened because he took a tailed beast into his body. And if the substance this meteor contained what Tatar called ultraparticles has the power to heal those symptoms, we have to find it, Sasuke said in a tone that brooked no argument, and Sakura nodded. Which is why the new mission is to look for this map of the heavens and obtain the ultraparticles, she said. First up, figuring out what exactly this map is. A book? A painting? Something else? I understand the change in the mission. But that isn't reason for you to be here. Sasuke glared at her. I'm a shinobi too, after all. Sakura furrowed her brow. I leave the village when I have to. You shouldn't deliberately court danger. You could easily have sent a hawk with the message. I did. But it didn't make it. The hawk came back with the letter still attached. What? Now it was Sasuke's turn to furrow his brow. Birds caught in the wild might have failed in a mission like this, but It was rare for a hawk raised and trained in the village from the time it was a chick to fail to deliver a letter. I don't know why, Sakura said. But this is time sensitive, so I decided to infiltrate the place as a doctor and simply tell you myself. And now that I'm here, I can help you. No need. Go back. It's too dangerous. Dangerous? Sakura got a very serious look on her face. You think I can't handle it? I know your strength and abilities. But I'm telling you that I can handle this by myself, he replied. And something's going on behind the scenes at this institute. Ocular jutsu doesn't work on the director or on Minnow. Then all the more reason I should stay, she insisted. You need a partner on special missions that can't be handled with brute force, right? What Sakura said made sense. When it came to battle, Sasuke boasted a strength unmatched by anyone other than the 7th Hokage. But he had to admit, this undercover mission was closer to espionage. In situations where a show of force simply would not work, like extracting information from someone immune to ocular jutsu or taking care of the job without hurting anyone or being found out, having a co-conspirator was a significant advantage. Plus, the environment here is awful, Sakura continued. People are dropping like flies from malnutrition and overwork, and yet no one thinks this is a problem. I proposed some improvements to Director Zansel, but it was like he didn't even hear me. He said he can bring in fresh recruits soon enough, no matter how many people die. He and the guards think you and the other prisoners are nothing more than easily replaceable labor. I thought I told you not to do anything dangerous, he said. What would you have done if you upset the director and he started paying real attention to you? I'm a doctor. I have a duty to do whatever I can for the health of everyone in this place. When it came to her work, Sakura was extremely stubborn. They glared at each other for a moment, but it was Sasuke who gave in with a sigh. Fine. Do what you want. But don't put yourself in danger. I would never. She smiled and whirled around toward her desk. Okay then. I'll send a sample of your blood to Konoha. And a situation report to Master Kakashi, just in case. He frowned. I thought hawks wouldn't work as a means of communication. Watch. Sakura whistled, and a small hawk came flying out of the back room. The strip of fabric the prisoners wore when they were out after hours was tied neatly around its neck like a little red scarf. I think the other hawk came back to Konoha because Minnow chased it away. The ironclad rule here is no unauthorized personnel allowed. But with this scrap of fabric, it might not be seen as an intruder. Makes sense. Sasuke nodded. Someone knocked on the door of the infirmary. Office hours had long passed. Husband and wife exchanged a look, wondering who would be here at this hour. Doctor, are you still awake? It was Gigi. Rather than his usual blustery tone, the question trailed upward, somehow soft. Sakura gave Sasuke's shoulders a push, and he returned to the bed. The partitioning curtain was yanked shut before his eyes, and he heard the sound of Gigi drawing near. Hey, Doc. You in here? Realizing that his feet were visible beneath the curtain, Sasuke raised his legs onto the bed, shoes and all. At the same time, Gigi's silhouette fell on the partition. Oh, you are here. Gigi, what's wrong? Sakura asked calmly. It's late. Take a look at this. Working yesterday, I burst a blister. I told the guard it hurt so bad, I couldn't sleep, and he gave me permission to come here. Sit down there. What's your number again? 544. Sasuke heard the sound of pen on paper. Sakura was probably creating a chart for Gigi. The treatment wouldn't take long. He sat cross-legged on the bed and decided to wait until Gigi left. Doc, you got any cigarettes? That's the best thing for stopping pain. Of course I don't. What do you think a doctor's office is? I'll do anything if you give me a cigarette. You really don't got any? Your old butts be just fine. This will sting. I'm going to disinfect the wound. Sakura took Gigi's arm and rolled up his sleeve slowly. Sasuke couldn't see it, but he could tell from the movement of the shadows on the curtain. He could tell just by listening to Gigi that his bit about being in too much pain to sleep was nothing more than a pretext. His cellmate had come here with some ulterior motive. That much was obvious. Separated from Sasuke by nothing more than a curtain, Gigi moved from topic to topic. He wanted a painkiller, he felt like he had a fever, and Sakura evaded his conversational tactics as necessary to continue treating him. Hey, Doc. You're not from around here, yeah? What makes you think that? Your name, color of your hair. I mean, cherry pink hair, I never seen that before. It's pretty, huh? Sasuke saw Gigi's hand move to touch Sakura's hair and couldn't stand it any longer. He grabbed Gigi's wrist from behind. Sakura rolled her eyes. Huh? Gigi's eyes grew round like saucers at the sudden appearance of his cellmate. Sasuke? Wait. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing. Sasuke said coolly. I came to get this blister patched up. It burst, and it's been really hurting me. The bleeding stopped, but it still smarts. A lie. You'll be in trouble if it gets infected. Take this. Sakura held a small cup filled with a green liquid toward Gigi. What is it? He asked. The extract of medicinal plants. It has an antibacterial effect. Whoa! Smells like garbage. If I'm gonna drink something antibacterial, I'd rather it be sake. About your earlier question, Sasuke said. The doctor there is my wife. Gigi spat out a mouthful of green liquid. Wiping away what dripped down his chin, he looked bewildered as he looked back and forth between Sasuke and Sakura. For real? Your wife? Huh? Does that mean you're married to the doctor? Seriously? Huh? You're married? I never said a word about being single, Sasuke noted. No, but a guy like you, he's usually single, Gigi replied. What kind of judgment is that? And what's your wife doing doctoring all the way out here? I came to see Sasuke, Sakura lied nonchalantly. Unlike prison, there's no visiting system here. But I just had to see him, so I decided to get hired on as a doctor. That's so? Gigi readily accepted her story, and Sasuke turned a shocked gaze on him. You're not surprised? Why would I be surprised? Gigi looked at Sasuke curiously. It's just normal behavior. I mean, a married couple, they're always together and all. Gigi. Don't tell anyone that Sakura's my wife, Sasuke told Gigi as they walked down the long hallway after leaving the infirmary. On his wrist was the strip of fabric Sakura had given him. Gotcha. Gigi winked. If anyone finds out she's family with a prisoner, the doc'll have to leave. But I never dreamed you were married, Sasuke. You gotta tell a fellow important stuff like that. You never asked, Sasuke reminded him. No. We definitely had adjacent conversations. I'm sure of that. Cellmates were basically in constant contact, so they ended up covering pretty much every topic of conversation. Naturally, girlfriends and marriages came up any number of times, but being undercover, Sasuke had always avoided going too deep into that one. Gigi. You've got a fiancé, don't you? Sasuke said. Yup. Gigi grinned. She's working in the capital right now. Once I've done my time, we're getting hitched. Sasuke dropped his gaze to his feet. The dyed rug was pale in the light of the moon pouring in through the large window. I mean, a married couple, they're always together and all. Sasuke had more or less digested Gigi's words. But they didn't really click for him, given that he was often away from the village on long-term missions. Do you think that married couples should be together? He asked. Well, of course. Gigi's response was instantaneous. I mean, the doc wanted to be with you, so she went and got herself hired by this prison way out in the middle of nowhere. Oh, I don't know about that, Sasuke said. Although it's true I tend to be away from home. Away from home? Gigi asked. How much we talking here? There have been periods when I haven't gone home for several years. You serious? Gigi was stunned. Years? I mean, that length of time, you couldn't really say anything if she just assumed the two of you were done. Sasuke cocked his head to one side. Why would she assume that? Why wouldn't she? Gigi stared back at him just as seriously. It's not as though I left her behind without telling her, Sasuke said. They need Sakura back home, and I have to work outside the country. That's just how it is. Nothing more than that. We exchanged letters. No, but still. You wouldn't hate it if some bad apple like me came along while you were gone? You don't wear rings in your country? Gigi looked at Sasuke with an honestly worried expression on his face. I mean, a married couple, they're always together and all. Sasuke couldn't really understand what Gigi was trying to say. Sakura was family. He was certain that no matter where he went, that would never change. He'd never heard of anyone not being family anymore when they were separated by however many kilometers. Even when he had had that deep hatred of Itachi in his heart, the fact that Itachi was his older brother never changed. To Sasuke, Sakura was family and a partner to live his life with. Even if they weren't connected by blood, even if they couldn't see each other every day, that fact would always remain. That was his thinking on the matter, but going to the trouble of putting it into words and communicating it to Gigi was annoying and didn't suit his personality. So he simply nodded and said, I see, before changing the subject. Have you ever heard anything about a map of the heavens? Map of the heavens? Gigi repeated, his voice trailing upward as he cocked his head to one side. Nope, never heard of it. From the name, I'd guess it was some astronomy book. Maybe it's in the library? Try asking Penzilla. Why Penzilla? Sasuke asked, and Gigi blinked at him in surprise. Huh? I mean, he's the library attendant. End of chapter 2. Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe for lots more.